Yeah, you read the title and thumbnail right, Blizzard have actually done something different. Now, I shared your reaction most likely to this patch. I thought, oh, a reused island expedition for the sake of catch-up gear? I get the team being scrappy, but I really hope this isn't low effort. And given some past minor patches, I think that's kind of fair. We actually know that Forbidden Reach was a Herculean effort put together by a small team in not that much time. But then something happened. We played the Siren Isle properly, and what we found was altogether different when we paid attention to the details. We found the best world building the Blizzard have shipped in years. I'm going to start with a story. Cersei stood alone facing the darkness that crept upon the Stormwind shore. Her blade shone, seemingly in defiance of the black blood that erupted after every swing. She shepherded her people to their destiny, but at this point, it seemed that all they would find was death. The Abyss was birthing an endless army of scaled serpents, and the Iron Defenders had worn thin. Hemusul, the Luminous heart, was in danger, so Cersei had no choice but to stand in her defense. As the siren song fell silent, Thrair gave his own last breath to tear apart the sky. At great cost, Cersei's Isle, now called the Siren Isle, would forever be protected by the endless storm. And that is just a very small part of Cersei's story, and hers is just one of many that we find in the Isle, and they are well told. Blizzard have cooked just like today's sponsor. They're a longtime channel sponsor, Boot.dev, and they have just got even better. So they're the best place to learn back-end development using Python and Go, and they're structured as a community RPG. They are made by fellow viewers of the channel, yes, like fantasy RPG guys, and well, they've got better with this, which is their big UI refresh. And in a world where things become very soulless and very modern, they're leaning into role-playing games, which I love. Like, it's clean, but it's got character. And they're keeping on doing that. As an example, another new feature is called Spellbook, and it is so cool. As you're progressing through your different modules, you unlock new Spellbook pages. They're all fully searchable, they're full of concept explainers, documentation, code examples, and you can access it all with just a simple press of a hotkey, and it all unlocks as you progress, which is really cool for learning. And it's what I love about their platform, where it's designed as basically a journey and an experience, not just a product, which I think is killer for learning. Now, their pathway is substantial. You're starting with the likes of your Python fundamentals, covering the likes of, say, Lua as well. You've got example projects like a server client, Pokedex, and that goes through to everything you need on the job, as well as things around that. As an example, they've got a full module on actually getting a job in the tech industry. So it is brilliantly done, and you can kind of tell why there's character. It's led by two brothers. Big corporations just can't really make an experience with heart like this. It's pretty damn amazing. So you can check them out today at boot.dev/bellular. When you go there, you'll get 25% off your first purchase. I'd go annual for the biggest saving, and if it's not for you, well, they've got a no questions asked 30-day refund period, and you can browse their materials and their demos for free. Look, we're doing a pretty epic lore video, and to make sense of it, we drew up this chart that was just trying to connect all of the different beats of the story together. And I say trying because we genuinely had to put it together, do some detective work. And no, this is not some sort of big spoiler video. What we were doing was putting together what Blizzard laid down for us. Blizzard's Quest team have leveled up their world building skills tremendously, so that where we expected Forbidden Reach 2.0, we got something very, very different. Beneath the surface, this place is so much more than just rewards. The dialogue, the flavor text, quest descriptions, treasures, and world come together to be some of the best world building. And let's just start with before the patch and how we actually get there, because even that represents something new and different. The TLDR is goblins heard the call of the island. They went there, they found a bit of a crystal, and that sparked a race. The Arathi and others all rushing towards the isle. And that's how we end up there. There is no champion! Azeroth needs your aid! The wounds! No, there's nothing like that. You're not there as the hero of the Horde of the Alliance. Something's going on in the world because somebody else bumped into something. And that's just us following the call to adventure. That is a far better framing than what we get in the past. And when we get there, the hints start rolling in. The three factions put their heads together to try and study this crystal. The Earthen need their tools to be attuned, but luckily the radiant shards that the Arathi brought from Hallowfall do the job. Plus, the Arathi say, this crystal feels like Belladar, but not exactly like Belladar. And since we just found out that these crystals are World Soul energy, we already have a bit of a hint as to what's going on. It's Azeroth stuff. But putting all of that aside, we learn that this is just one exposed facet. But then we find way more. Just past some aggressive Rykul, inside a caved-in tunnel, we find a tablet. Now, this tablet is engraved and it's dotted with crystals, and it's called the Song of Cersei. When we touch the tablet, we are teleported miles beneath the surface of the world into an ancient Vrykul tomb. So, like, if this was a movie, this would be the bit where the characters, they end up miles down, they stop, they look about the place, they try to work out what just happened, what's this strange adventure. And in a way, it brings my mind to vanilla World of Warcraft, questing through Darkshore when you didn't know anything, finding the High Elf ruins that were just full of ancient ghosts, or perhaps discovering Uldaman and the Titan ruins in the Badlands. And to make it all so much better, this is where they try something new but old. So in the style of when we first dove into those ruins around Azeroth, we get history. And it starts with a tablet when we enter. The Lord of Thunder, Cersei, the Winterscorn, Ironbacks, without the Keepers, a call beneath the earth. And we basically dive in to the history from the perspective of whoever is engraving these tablets. And if we connect the dots, we figure it all out. What we learn is that Thorim, the Lord of Thunder, is gone. And that means that these events took place after Loken's betrayal. Again, if you remember Wrath, you'll know what's up. Cersei led this clan of Vrykul away from the Winterscorn all those years ago. They left from Stormpike, which seems like somewhere in the Storm Peaks, and of course they have Iron Backs, which means that this is when they're still Iron Vrykul. There's no curse of flesh fully happening to their forge yet. Now, with Loken gone, breaking the Keeper's regime, these Vrykul were basically without their purpose. Until, of course, they heard the call of the Isle. And looking around the tomb, we see forgotten protectors with shards of a crystal embedded in their helmets. And when we walk past them, it wakens as a golden crystal-sworn memory. Even that name, Crystal-sworn. These are Iron Vrykul worshipping the Isle's crystal. Again, think of the World Soul connection there. Now, there are tons of these tablets, and each one of them teases out just a little bit more of the story. Here's an amazing one. Cersei's winged companion has crystal eyes. Together, these Vrykul found what they named Humasul, trying my best at a bit of a Norwegian pronunciation, and that translates to the luminous heart that was calm, graceful, and the source of the call that drew them to the Isle. Whoever carved these stones claims to have had their mind cleared and their inspirations renewed upon seeing the crystal. And afterwards, after this, they forged a circlet for Cersei. And this circlet would hold shards of the luminous heart. And that is, of course, the circlet that we are able to acquire and power up in this patch. Generations would pass on this isle until the day of the Sundering, where the skies flashed a noxious green, the Vrykul fortress collapsed, and the crystal cried out in pain. Then darkness rose up from beneath the waves. N'Zoth had sent an emissary to claim the crystal. And it's in the next tablet that we learn the fate of these Vrykul. While they did keep the crystal safe, ultimately they were ended. They gave up their entire clan to defend it. Now, we learn all of this before we even see the crystal. Before we see the crystal, before we get Cersei's circlet, we actually understand the whole backstory of it, that it is this pretty storied special item that a lot of people died to protect. It's a hell of a story. And even as we're putting down these waking memories of the Vrykul, their last words are in regret and remorse for Cersei's sacrifice. But then we keep on traveling. We find the circlet, but it's not in the hands of a Vrykul. It's in the hands of a Kultiran skeleton, and that raises even more questions. And this is just the introductory quest. And you can see it's all mythological, retold just through the eyes of a simple stone carver. And it never tells us directly what's happening. No, we find the carved tablets and we connect the dots ourselves, almost like an archaeologist or historian. It is satisfying. It's actually channeling the energy that we've seen in myth-driven stories like Elden Ring, where you're not getting mountains of cutscenes and exposition. No, you find a location, you explore, you look around, you find flavor text on a small item, and you realize that flavor text matters and it tells you about the mythos. That is perfect for an MMO, and that is the way the Siren Isle is designed. It's all mysteries and connections. say, the Kultiran skeleton. Through a handful of quests, that has us uncovering just the story of their crude attempts to document the expedition. And it's flavorful writing, just like how the stone carver is from his perspective. Well, these are the clumsy, emotional scrawlings of a barely literate Kultiran who is just trying to keep a record of things for his wife back home. It's a great way to add context to everything we see, because when we look at a Crowlisk in the Isle, that's just a mob. I don't know, maybe it'll be a leather farm. But to this NPC, it was really dangerous, or in desperate times, it was dinner. The storm also stops us from flying, but of course for this expedition, well, it forced them to hide. It wrecked their ships, it left them stranded. And we see that in the diary, the ruins, the skeletons. We begin to see how the Call of the Isle also led to people acting weirdly. And when things got really bad, it drove them into a fevered madness. In the final entry, we learn why the tablet shrine had caved in, and it explains all that we see in-game. And it all comes together to give the Siren Isle a sense of history, right down to the mine carts, the Kultiran graves, and how the crystals even changed how the local wyverns behaved. But that's not all, and I've got a real tasty lore bomb for you, because we also see the Naga, and the Naga are not new here. Their prior invasions are detailed in a scroll, each describing their repeated failure to grab the circlet, which apparently they need to bring Ashara back to them. So is this something to do with the Void, or is it something to do with the Storm? And then there's the Storm. So the Storm was caused in rage by Thryer, which is Cersei's partner, right? The big bird. He's a powerful elemental with shards of Azeroth crystal for eyes. Now, of course, we recently learned the lore of the Storming Sea, which seems to be the reason why, well, nobody's really been to the other side of Azeroth. Does that imply that the Storming Sea was caused by Azeroth herself? Because Thryer caused this storm and his eyes are shards of the World Soul energy? And it also elevates Thryer, which otherwise would have just been a mount you earn for completing an achievement. I mean, it is that, but now, well, this is the mount that created the storm, that has a deep history, that sacrificed a lot, that of course is tied to the story of Cersei. The circlet, everything just ties together. I think that is wonderful. And the Naga stuff also confirms something else. Oh, this is good. There are Naga on the other side of the Storming Sea. This is a huge revelation. Sky Captain Lancecat even tells us that she has experience fighting the Naga in Imperial waters. So that's pretty neat. But of course, patch 11.1 is called Undermined. It's got goblins, and on the topic of goblins, there's interesting stuff too. And that's because if you pay attention, you'll find out that the Hosen have came across Kaja Cola. That's rather fitting because Kajamite, when exposed to the goblins, actually gave them their intellect. And it's also made the Hosen a little bit more smart. They've even started trying to write poetry. Pretty dangerous if the monkeys actually start writing poetry and it ends up being good. Now, there's of course the invading Vrykul. They are not pulled out of a hat. They are the Bloodwake clan, first introduced in Battle for Azeroth, where a lore scroll detailed how their leader was plundering the seas. And seriously, that lore scroll back in BFA, it suggested that his fleet was goddamn mighty. So it's cool to see them be active again. And it certainly means, oh, we could get those Vrykul in the future. And in fighting them, we learned that to them, the isle is called Siren Isle. Now, Dal means valley in Norwegian, a little bit like Dale in English, so if you think about it, it translates to Siren's Valley. Of course, you also notice that Cersei's name starts with the same three letters, CYR. It's just lovely how Blizzard have made this all click together. It started as an unused island expedition, but they made it into something more. They absolutely goddamn nailed the world building. Whenever Blizzard talk about fleshing out an unknown period of Azeroth's history, I mean, this kind of thing is exactly what they meant. So, since Wrath of the Lich King, it's often felt less and less like we've been exploring Azeroth. We've been exploring these sort of little random things that have been added, but here with the Siren Isle, we've explored Azeroth again. People's reactions were just along the lines of lazy devs, reused content, awful. Look at The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. It's got the same Hyrule. They didn't spend their time remaking the basic overworld of Hyrule again. They already had one from Breath of the Wild, so they kept it. What they did with their 6 or whatever years of development time was channel everything into gameplay and content. And of course, Tears of the Kingdom is now regarded as one of the best games of this age, maybe one of the best games ever. And that's the thing. You can spend so much time just building new locations, like literally placing the stones, working out what does grass look like in this place. That could take months and months and months and months from so many people. But here, they already had something. So their development time went into developing it as content, as story, because a new shiny place that is not developed as a piece of content in a story isn't really worth that much. Now, in this video, I've deliberately avoided digging into the completeness of these stories. None of the largest lore implications or speculations are in this video because those are not the point. The point is not, hey, big lore drop, get excited for next thing. The point is that Blizzard have actually done way better here. And if you pay attention, you'll see that this is just better content. You'll enjoy it more. Piecing this together was a joy. It has been some of the most fun exploration, world building, narrative content that they've done. And all without the need for cutscenes and expensive high production value main story quests. Okay, I will do the lore deep dive later, even soon, but if you want to maximize your experience on this piece of content and have an experience like we did, you need to check out this video next, because one of the add-ons in it is a game changer for WoW storytelling, and it shines in the Siren Isle more than really any other piece of content, so watch this video next.